why is it so hard for beginners to get started in a Scrum Master role? What is the situation currently on the market? And to answer all these questions and more, I brought to this episode Kristina Rudolph. Hi, Kristina, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Can you tell me a few words about yourself and your background before getting started with Scrum Agile?
Yeah, definitely. I spent 20 years in and out of the design realm, so I'm a career changer working on my second career, although it's quite relatable still. I have an undergraduate degree in industrial design and metalsmithing, where I worked as an exhibit designer, I worked as a bench jeweler, I worked as a continuing ed metalworking teacher, and I also spent some time in construction, so it's pretty diverse. Then I returned for school a little ways after that for a master's degree in graphic design. And I worked on campus through an assistantship that paid for my master's program, where I was the lead graphic designer for Eastern Michigan University Campus Life Department. And after graduating that, I became a graphic and web professor at a private college for a couple of years. That also overlapped with some of the 5 years I spent working in the retail sector for Apple. I learned a lot about business and politics, but most of that learning was really when I began to understand how visual design and user interface design coincided with the user experience. And I enjoyed seeing that alignment of digital products with the humanity of people learning how to understand and use them. So after that, I spent time freelancing with small businesses to help integrate better visual user experiences and marketing into their businesses.
Okay, so a lot of UI UX work in the last years, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And how did you hear about Scrum or Agile? Have you used this in previous projects or with your clients?
Yeah, so this is funny. Those former experiences I spoke of where there was a lot of waterfall happening until I got a freelance consulting job. And I was working with an Agile coach and training company. And I traded my design and user research services in exchange for attending their 2-day Scrum workshop. And that was my initial exposure to Scrum.
Oh.
At the workshop, yeah, I learned a lot about Scrum, but I was also busy collecting UX research for the attendees and noticing gaps where there was learning getting lost in translation and where the cognitive load was too much. And I worked with the founders to create some icons and infographics to simplify the slide content. And it gave me a lot of feedback as to where the users were getting lost in the training materials and how we could further refine them. So that job edged right up to the beginning of the COVID-19 shutdown. So once it hit, although we had some great output, the job didn't develop into anything longer term because businesses tightened up. And then I was also working part-time as a barista at a local coffee shop because I really liked that energy. And I knew absolutely nothing about coffee, so I wanted to learn something new.
You wanted to add that to your portfolio of know-how.
Sure, why not, right? Like the kitchen sink here, let's go for it all. But yeah, so that closed too, the coffee shop. And then instantly, like a lot of people, I was out of work. Right away, though, I was noticing webinars and workshops, they were going remote. So it was a great opportunity for me to network remotely and build on my skills since I had nothing in the pipeline.
Okay. And, at one point you decided to learn more about Scrum, learn more about Agile in general. So which you mentioned, this webinars, but which path exactly did you take and why? And, did you have a mentor in this process, or did anyone give you advice on which path to take, what to do exactly?
Yeah, that's good questions. After being completely out of work, I started excessively attending different tech, UX, and design meetups, but I also started getting into Agile because of that former work experience. And I continued to build on that. And somehow, as spring began, I found out about this free Agile MBA course through the Job Hackers. And that's where I learned more about Scrum and business objectives and TDD and BDD and software development from this Larry Apke guy, who is awesome.
Okay.
Little plug there for him. But
Yeah.
his 6 weeks class, it was free. So Larry just asked that you give back to the community by volunteering. The course had 5 book recommendations. Not everyone had time to read that much. It was about 50 pages of reading per day. I did do it, and I got a lot out of it. And I actually took the class twice and picked up different things each time.
Mm.
And I really started building a network on the West Coast in California because that's where the class remotely occurs, even though I'm actually in Metro Detroit, Michigan. But the Job Hacker Network and class also has a growing Slack channel. And there's opportunities to support one another and chat. And they have events like resume review feedback nights, interview practice, happy hours.
Nice.
And it's all remote. So there's this huge opportunity to network with an international group of people. And it's just a really supportive group. And you get what you put in for the class and for the group. I was really active. I still am in sharing resources and my learns with everyone. And the group is also just a great resource to have, both to network and share our struggles. So in that respect, we're all mentoring each other.
Yeah. And I think it's an important thing because you're not feeling alone, and you have other people who are in a similar situation. And yeah, having the support, I can understand that is very, very powerful. And
Definitely.
by the way, I'll have to ask you after this interview to send me over where people can get more information about the path that you took, this Agile MBA, and maybe also other books or other resources that you have used. So all of this will be available in the video description for later on, in case you want to check them out.
Yeah, I'm really into that free piece of, having education available to everyone. And besides the fact that his class is it's a really well done class, and it really gives you the basics of all business and Scrum related things.
Yeah. So where did you start looking for jobs?
That's a good question too. I invested a lot of time on LinkedIn building my network and reaching out to people in the industry and applying, more so than applying blindly to roles on job boards. I've gone to a lot of remote interview events and remote job fairs, and I've had actually better luck with those than anything else. It's about building those connections so you're at the top of somebody's mind. It's a lot of work between webinars and panels and the job search. I'm spending about 10 or 11 hours per day connecting with people and generating leads. Honestly, once I land this, perfect career move, my load will lighten, but I'll still continue to help the community because I know it's hard out there, having been there. And I'm a huge advocate of attending coaching and Agile meetups while I keep my foot kind of in the design aspects of product development, even though I'm no longer focused on doing straight up design work. And I've reached out to scrum masters and product managers for informational interviews to continue to learn with hopes of going down that path. There was a few opportunities with the job hackers to volunteer, and connections that there was an internship available through the San Diego Code School during the summer cohorts. That was the second time I took the class.
Okay.
And I applied to that internship and I got an interview. And I was one of 4 people selected to work as a scrum master for the San Diego Code School, and also worked on developing a learning program in San Diego, ultimately to be used by the area of San Diego, the state of California, to create a recognized certified apprentice program for Scrum Master product owners while I worked as their Scrum Master.
Okay. In that period, have you also looked for paid jobs or only for internships or, volunteer work?
Yeah, I have not gotten a lot of push. More recently now I have, but without having that internship experience, it was harder to really get any bites.
Okay.
So I really recommend the, interning or volunteering because it's going to help you get that knowledge. And unfortunately that I'm very much into accessibility of information and, inclusion. And it's very unfortunate because people who, you know, have full plates, have families, have a lot of commitments, are not able to work for free. I mean, they need to keep food on the table and things going. So it's an unfair truth, I think.
I think it's also like a balance between exactly what you said, but at the same time, like fulfilling this need that many organizations have, like, you know, that you bring experience, but nobody is offering that chance to get experience. So yeah.
I had that recently with the feedback I got from a job. They're like, well, contact us back in about a year or two when you've had some more experience. And I'm like,
thank you very much.
Catch 22.
Yeah. But, you know, you still had this internship, and that provided probably a lot of value for you and also for that organization. I know that you have a scrum-master certification. Did that Scrum certification help you with the internship, and did it help you get started easily? Was it a, you know, criteria for getting the job altogether?
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't necessary to have any certifications for my internship with the San Diego Code School. The founder, Mike, was really great about that. A lot of jobs do ask for certifications. And if you're up against another candidate, it will definitely make you stand out on the top of the pile. I did let Mike know that I felt acquiring the certifications would help me better align to building the program and grasp the use concepts, which it definitely did. I did go for that certification. Besides building the program, I was working as the Scrum Master for internal projects, and I was also reverse shadowing other consulting work we did with other startups and companies. I also worked sort of in the capacity of a product owner because I was maintaining the product backlog and sprints for the epic of building the Scrum Master product owner program. Okay. And I noticed a big difference in my initial understanding and its growth while studying for the professional Scrum Master exam. Between taking your class through Udemy and going through those processes, I actually really learned a lot on how to kind of read between the lines of the Scrum Guide, and I got value from both of those experiences. I took the PSM before I took your Udemy course. Okay. This was near the start of my internship, and as you know, you need an 85% to pass. But I took that exam the first time, and this is money out of my own pocket, and I got an 80%. The job hackers actually really supported me in that down moment. And your class came up as a reoccurring resource in people's study regimens. So I decided to get on Udemy and take it, and it worked. I took it and studied for the exam right before Thanksgiving, and I passed with a 97.5. And I was really pleased because I've always struggled with standardized testing in school. And I knew at that point, I really understood Scrum. Having the Scrum Master role and using Jira during the internship also played into what you taught. So I could really apply your references to the tools in those real world scenarios. And I continued for the studying for the PSPO in December and over Christmas. And then in early January, I took the PSPO Udemy course from you, and I passed that one in January in 2021 on the first try. Yeah. So even if the certifications weren't initially required, the act of that hard work paying off, I think what it did more than anything is it really helped my self-esteem. And I think everyone has imposter syndrome, and I'm no exception. So the internship is over now, but being able to overcome that was really big for me. And the network, you're talking about the importance of having those mentors and peers and everything with the job hackers was a big thing.
Yeah. And I mean, these Scrum certifications are obviously not perfect. And, essentially what's the positive thing that you take from them is that it forces you to read more, to interact with other people, to ask questions, and not just to assume that you know everything. But they do very little to demonstrate or to teach any practical skills. So you can have a lot of certifications, but still have no experience, or just reading the Scrum guide itself or a Scrum book will not directly help you figure out how to get started as a scrum master when you're
Oh
getting your
yeah.
first job. So
Yeah, definitely not.
you're picking up a lot of information from different places, and that's essentially the learning process. There is no one single resource that is the answer to everything. You learn on the way.
For sure.
I was just wondering, like, how did your internship go, and what did you learn? What were the challenges in the beginning?
Yeah, learned a lot. You hear that from a lot of people, right? 5 big things were my takeaways: software and process, working remotely, working with diversity, the developer lingo, and then growing my emotional intelligence. So first piece, software. I had to learn Atlassian software because I'd never used Jira or Confluence before. Coming from waterfall environments, I had some exposure to Microsoft projects for sort of that start to finish manufactured process as an industrial exhibit designer. Working remote, I worked with the founder to create the outline for the scrum-master product owner apprentice learning path. So I had to learn how to use Confluence and create the onboarding documentation and organize everything so that the incoming apprentices could make a smooth transition into the role. As interns, we had to know when we had trouble ourselves because nothing was established for remote onboarding either. So we used our own experiences as the basis for integrating and creating the onboarding documentation. And then since I'm in the Eastern time zone in the United States, I also had to adapt to late night calls because of the 3-hour time difference. And then we also used Slack as a major form of communication. So just the remote pieces in general were extremely different and, challenges in themselves, besides adapting to the job and all of the requirements. I was involved in major meetings with our in-house team, as well as working with the founder as he consulted with other startups. I was doing all this while I was developing this SMPO program. And basically I was a product owner, but also a project and program manager, and also the scrum master, depending on the time of day. I was
scrum master in the morning and
right, exactly. Right. I was also working with Mike as he consulted with 3 other teams who were transitioning to adopt Scrum practices. And then the diversity perspective part, I really didn't understand like how big the self-organization of the Scrum team piece was going to be, because this was basically a 2-year-old startup who was just beginning to adopt Scrum practices. So I was working with a cohort of developer apprentices who were less than a year into their QA and design and development roles. Plus the group was extremely atypical in the sense that San Diego Code School's program seeks and supports diversity, and it's a big part of what they do. So we had diversity in ages, in levels of work knowledge, in life experiences. It included BIPOC, it included neurodiverse teammates, and all these group, these team members were coming from non-traditional environments and non-traditional educational backgrounds even. These are not people that have computer science degrees. These are people that attended this boot camp, which transitioned into this job piece. And I really liked that complexity, which made for really colorful days in thought and in the output of talent and the feedback that we got. And then the fourth piece, the working with the languages, with developers. I was lucky that my design background made up for me to easily understand the front end projects, but I definitely had to ramp up to learn and feel comfortable with the back end speak when we were doing sprint planning, and creating and adapting our user stories in Jira. So during our remote meetings, I usually had a Google window up on the side. And whenever someone said a term that I didn't recognize, I would type it in. And at the end of the meeting, I would have like 10 windows of research open. And after sprint planning, we would launch the sprint and I would be like learning all of those different things. So, there's a lot of self focus there. Yeah. And then the last piece is the emotional intelligence piece. And that's really influencing the group without actually being a leader with any influence. And that's, a big piece of of being a scrum master. So helping them feel comfortable coming forward with impediments or even talking to me, it was obviously a struggle we all face in the beginning. We also struggled to define articulate sprint goals. So it was a slow set of process improvements. And I was really lucky though, because even everyone was new and open to me being present, and I didn't have to fight legacy practices or erase preconceived notions on whether Scrum would work. We just tried it day after day. Each day we got a little bit better.
Yeah, totally different mindset than what you're describing with like adding Scrum or Agile thinking to existing organizations that have been doing something for years and years, and they just cannot conceive doing anything else because that's the status quo essentially. Yeah,
it's a different set of struggles.
It's a different set of struggles. Yeah. And yeah, I think the fourth point is also kind of important because that's happening a lot to people when they're coming to essentially any project or any company has like its internal vocabulary. And what I've seen some teams do or some organizations do is that they have like a public space where they have like a glossary of all the terms that are being used, so that anyone joining can have like an easier path than you had, for example, like Googling everything, right. And then just okay, what does this mean? And
and that was a piece, right? And that was a piece of what we were putting together with the SMPO program too, so that it could be a more smooth transition. Yeah, again, I mean, part of it was experience documenting those pieces and then figuring out how to put them into this curriculum development.
Yeah. When you joined this organization or you started the internship, have you wondered like what is the Scrum Master supposed to do all day, or part of the day at least? How was the typical day for you?
There wasn't one. Okay. So yeah, no, there was definitely typical pieces to the day. We would have the daily Scrum at a very specific time every day, but it took place on Slack. So we would talk about what we did yesterday, what we're working on, and then any impediments. But we would, if there were any impediments, or even if there wasn't any impediments, we'd actually hop on an actual video call. So everything had to be done by, I guess is 8 Pacific Standard Time. Mm-hmm. And we would hop on a call, and then we would all just, listen, talk, kind of come together to figure out if we needed to, have people pair program, have people mob program. And then usually after about 6 or 7 minutes, Mike would have some announcements or some things that we needed to, discuss. And so it was a cross between a daily Scrum and then transitioning into like sort of just a daily meeting. Mm. But it started on the Slack channel.
Okay.
So it's a bit different because, again, you're all working remote, and I gotta guess that there's probably similar stuff happening out there in the world. From there, it was just, people would reach out to me if they had impediments. In some cases, they went beyond just the impediments of the workday to some things that they may have had to learn or do that they didn't know. So kind of figuring out, okay, well, who do we need to get you paired up with? How do we need to talk these things out? A lot of the unfolding of the teams actually came when we would have the sprint retrospectives.
Okay.
So that was really where we would talk about, what we saw. Better. Yeah, what we saw wasn't working great, but it was all from a very positive place. It really was, because as a Scrum Master, you want to be positive, and you really want to, get people geeked about everything. And that's the fun part, because sometimes you're totally phoning it in, but that if you're positive about it, they got to be positive about it too.
It's being transmitted even over Slack. So that.
Right. But still being transparent, still being authentic. It's a fine line.
That's just part of it. Yeah. I was just wondering, would you also be interested in trying a product owner role?
Yes. I got my PSPO so that I could better understand working as a scrum master, but beside the product owner, but as well as having the competencies to do that actual work. I created all the user stories in our program development epic as the PO. Okay. This was different from the internal and external software development projects, the other epics that the developers worked on. I will say that we didn't have a true Scrum team because we didn't have a dedicated PO. Our founder was one of the more senior developers worked together to develop the user stories and the guidelines for refining the backlog of those hard-coded pieces. And then we would come together in sprint planning and talk through how we were going to execute those stories. Okay. So as a PO, you definitely get greater exposure with the business-focused aspects of articulating the value and getting business stakeholders and user stakeholder involvement. And my work designing definitely helps on the user piece of creating the high-value impacts for the external user stakeholders. But I'm well on my way, but I need to focus on the business objectives of the internal stakeholders and deepen that understanding around business value and return on investment pieces. So if I actually had a PO role, I would really be able to learn more about that. But that is not my strongest point. My strongest point is people skills.
Well, I think you need people skills also for
That's
essentially
true.
any team role. You know, even if you're a developer, you still need people skills. You still need to interact with other developers, and of course, the Scrum Master. That's more or less in the job description, but yeah, it's definitely a quality that I confirm you have. So we can make a checkbox there. So this internship is now over, and from the discussion that we're having, it seems that, you know, and in the conditions you worked, it seems that you really gained a lot of experience in a very short amount of time. What are you doing right now?
Yeah, so now that my internship ended, I'm back at the job search like everyone else. I think the largest hurdle is that although I was acting in the capacity of a Scrum Master and product owner, as well as doing the program and the product management and all the other pieces, it still gave me less than half a year of true Agile environment work. Mm-hmm. So I really have to incorporate my transferable design experiences and my 20 years of working in waterfall environments and tip the scale and convince businesses of my value. I've always done small amounts of project and program management as a freelance consultant in startups and organizations and nonprofits. But other than working at Apple, I didn't have work inside enterprise level organizations, which focus on that business speak piece. So my next steps are really going to be continuing my job search. And I want to learn basic Python so I can improve my backend development programming language skills. To help, you know, working with developers in the future. And then, you know, COVID is a challenge that's affecting all of us. So all I can do is keep up the job search, continue to network, and in the meantime, study anything that puts me closer to that goal.
And just for anyone listening this, where exactly are you searching for jobs, and what are like a few sites or, you know, tips that you would like to share with others in a similar position as you are?
Yeah, so I would say if you're I call it cold calling. If you're applying to a job, say on LinkedIn or Monster or whatever, all the different job boards, they usually come into one place anyway. Mm. That you're not going to have a high return on investment there. Like, those jobs, some of them might actually already be taken by somebody and they're just putting that post out because it's company policy. What I would recommend is if you do use those sorts of avenues to look for work, I would definitely go on LinkedIn and find out who the HR person is, or say you want a Scrum Master role, you know, go look for other Scrum Masters that might already be in that company or in that place. maybe there's not a scrum master, maybe they're new to Scrum. So, reaching out to a CEO or founder or anything. They can't not hire you more. I heard this last week, and this is going to be like it's actually on my computer as a little sticky note, but they can't not hire you more. So just reach out to them, try to connect with them, make it personal though, because you saying, hey, I want to find out more about this job is not personal, but maybe you realize that you're in the same group together, or you realize that you've had similar experiences in the job world. I reached out to people because I'm like, hey, I saw you worked in retail with Apple too. So just make it more personal for those connections. And then I would say better resources, better ways of doing things than looking for the job search route is just expanding your network, going to webinars, meeting people. I mean, an interview that I have next week has to do with the fact that I was chatting with somebody casually on, during the webinar, and he's like, oh, hey, we're doing this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And now there's a meeting scheduled. But yeah, I've actually had good luck with job fairs. They're obviously remote right now, but you're on video and or talking with people in chat while those things are happening. The thing is, it gets you really good at practicing speaking to people, because a lot of these job fairs, they're like 5-minute.
So they're like a short interview that when you're going to a booth and say, hey, I'm introducing myself.
Yeah. It's like very fast networking. So you have to really refine your elevator pitch, and like, even if that doesn't go anywhere, it's good practice. But pretty much all the leads that I have, all the interviews that I've had this week and that I have next week, really deal with people that I've met at remote job fairs, and just keeping those lines of communication open. One person, I noticed that I had emailed him back and forth. Like, we'd had conversations 17 times. It started in the end of November.
Oh.
Yeah, because I was just kind of casually looking then, because I knew my internship would be coming to a close soon. And as of 2 weeks ago now, I've really ramped up my job search, because, it's February now and internship's over.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he actually told me, he goes, I really like your enthusiasm, but it wasn't over the top. Like I wasn't badgering him or being annoying. So you gotta find that fine line between being a go-getter and not sounding desperate.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
And to be honest, I never attended one of these remote job fairs. Yeah. And I was just wondering.
It's like speed dating. It's like speed dating. It's awkward. You usually don't know too much about the company ahead of time. Okay. Maybe you go into it because they don't usually post all of the companies too soon before the event happens. So you might be able to look a little bit into them. I like to have, fire for the fodder. Like, I like to know about the companies and some of the people in the organizations before I even start communicating with them, because it makes you sound intelligent. I mean, I am intelligent, but you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's really awkward. I mean, I can't tell you that I enjoy it. I mean, who wants to speed date for a job? But it works. I mean.
And where do you find out about these events? Is there like you search on Google for remote job fair, or was it like something specific to let's say software development or something related to Agile and Scrum projects? How did you find them?
Yeah, that's actually a good question to ask, because the way that I find these job fairs is through the networking and connecting that I do in chats during webinars and reaching out and talking to people. Sometimes there's ones on Eventbrite, or people will talk about them at meetups, but I'm on a couple of different newsletters. And again, I'm based in the Metro Detroit, Michigan area. So I'm looking at companies that are located in, Detroit and Dearborn and Ann Arbor, kind of. Michigan's shaped like a mitten. So everybody makes fun of this because we always point to where we're from. So I'm from there. And, I'm just looking in this general area right here. But I'm also looking for remote positions, and there are remote ones. As a woman, I think maybe there's a little bit more resources for women who want to get into tech. So you can Google, there's something called WomenHack. So I've gotten interviews from having conversations with that speed dating situation through WomenHack events. And they have them in different large cities, again, remotely, but they're, basing them out of big cities. And I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And again, it would be great to get some examples from you. Anywhere where there's something happening, or maybe there's an organization hosting this, so that I can include them in the video description so that others can take a look at them. I think often, like, just this idea itself, this is something that hasn't crossed my mind. I had no idea this is happening. So, it's already.
Oh, remote job fairs, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why I'm having so much luck with them. No one knows they exist. So now, I better get my job.
I have to get, exactly.
I have more competition now.
More pressure on you to do that. Okay.
Yeah. No, but I really think that networking is the best way.
Yeah.
Just not being shy. You got nothing to lose.
I totally agree. And I think that a lot of people are really neglecting their LinkedIn profiles and are not connecting enough. And at the same time, they're, expecting that someone will, like with an Amazon package, someone will ring at the door and say, hey, I have a job offer for you. And, especially nowadays, it's hard. Something like that will not happen. And you really, as you demonstrate, you're really putting a lot of effort into it. And
yeah.
Well,
I will tell you, this is the first time I've had to do this. I wouldn't go so far as to say people have rung my doorbell, but I've never had a problem. Like, my jobs have just sort of melded into opportunities, just from me being out there. But this time, I think also with COVID, it just changed everything. It's more of a level playing field.
Yeah, on one side, everything is remote, but also the competition is coming from everywhere, because anyone can now work remotely and don't even have to be based in the US to work there anymore. So that's the challenge is there. Yeah. So in terms of searching for jobs, you mentioned a lot, like directly interacting with people on LinkedIn, making as many contacts as possible. Can you talk about more from which experiences you had with this?
Yeah. So for example, I applied to a job at Lego. And
in Denmark?
In Denmark, yes. And I clearly, you would think that I know everybody in Denmark, but I don't. What I did is I found a scrum-master at Lego in Denmark at the same main office. And I reached out to him with a very personal message. And again, it's that they can't not hire you more. Like, you have nothing to lose. And I said, I would really like an informational interview so that I could learn more about the kind of work that you do with the Lego group. Mm-hmm. And, time changed. 2 days later, he said, sure, let me know, like, make me a list of questions. And I gave him a Calendly. It's good to be prepared and have some dates that you have available. Yeah. But he didn't want to actually meet. He didn't have the time to do a virtual meeting. So what he could do is he could reply to the questions that I made and answer them on his own time, and then come back with those answers to me.
Okay.
And it was really neat because I made sure that the questions were very personal. It was revolving around Scrum Master, not the coolness of Lego, because it's a JOB, right? Great, it's with Lego, but it's still a JOB. So I made sure to really focus on the Scrum Master piece, what it is that you do and what are your teams like, and how do you deal with impediments? But I made them very personal, questions. And he replied pretty quickly. I think it was, again, within like a day and a half, he had replied. And, I obviously read what he wrote, and I've kept in touch with him sort of back and forth. Now, I don't know if that position was already filled for the Scrum Master at Lego. Also with COVID, there's not much traveling happening. The country's closed for them. And I don't know how much world travel we're able to do right now anyway. But it just goes to show you that you can reach out to whoever you want. Just keep it personal.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very good example of this. And it's not every contact that you make, not every message that you send will lead somewhere, but
right.
Trying to build this, genuine connections with other people, and from any interaction, you're learning something new.
Sure.
Or generally, there is the opportunity of being exposed to other concepts, new tools, new words, new acronyms. It's just a reality. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, I think on one side, it's like super valuable to interact with other people. What I like doing a lot is whenever one of my students is trying to get in touch with me or is sending me like a block of questions, and I know that, typing everything and then doing a bit of back and forth with that person would take more than, let's say, booking a 15 or 20-minute slot over Calendly or something similar. Yeah, what's your take on this as a way to interact with other people instead of like exchanging messages?
Yeah, so I think what's important to understand here was that he was taking his time out of his schedule, across the world, right, in his time zone, in my time zone, to connect. And it was in a way that was convenient for both of us. So I think that was a good outlet. He said if I had further questions, I could contact him with those questions as well. And I think I did follow up with like one more thing too. But you have to understand that if you're asking for an informational interview, it's not an interview. You are not trying to get the job. You're trying to find out more information, to be empowered, to understand more about the place or the processes. Okay. So it would be inauthentic for you to reach out and ask for an informational interview and then follow up with, well, can you follow up with the person with me, or can you figure out where we are in the selection process or anything like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And essentially the person you were, let's say, doing this interview with, not being it a real interview, it wasn't even the person that was doing the hiring or has the authority to say yes or no, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he was just another scrum master on the team. Of a set of teams.
Yeah, this is essentially something that I'm also suggesting to a lot of people. I didn't know about this term, informational interview, but I'm getting this question a lot. Like, I want to get a job, like any job. It doesn't have to be a Scrum Master related. And what I'm suggesting is directly contacting other people, especially in larger companies. You should find a lot of people that are in a similar position, and you can ask them directly, like, how did you get there? Like, are Scrum certifications of any relevance for this organization altogether? Instead of like spending a lot of time and preparing for whatever certification you think is valuable, maybe they don't even care about that. And with that time, you could maybe get more experience, do like an internship or do any kind of way, any, say, unpaid work where it can get you more experience that they are actually looking for. So it's always valuable to directly reach out to people. And certainly my experience has been that people are, if they see the message, that's a problem sometimes with LinkedIn. But if you manage to get that message to them, they will most likely reply. And there are also many ways, and I don't know how you're doing it, but there are also ways on how you can figure out someone's email if you just want to reach out on a business mail directly and not rely on the delivery of messages on LinkedIn.
Yeah, a lot of times though, people do have their contact information on LinkedIn, so you can look for that. I don't do that blind of stuff, because if you're really trying to be that specific to not be found, you're not the kind of person that is going to move forward with a conversation in the first place. So I think that that's wasted time to try to locate somebody and, by covertly using different plugins or asking or guessing people's, emails based on, it's the @job.com, and just trying different things to put in, someone's first name or something. Yeah. So one of the things that I did was using my network. Speaking of using my network, I went to this really awesome webinar that was about negotiation through General Assembly last week before. I don't know. It's COVID time, so everything mushes together. But after that, I learned a lot about, how to negotiate effectively. And one of the things that they said was reach out to your network and ask them, what do people doing this kind of work make in this kind of situation, in this market or whatever. And so I was like, again, nothing to lose. Like, let's try this, right? So I reached out to scrum masters. I reached out to product managers in my network, and I asked them these questions. And I was surprised. I mean, literally people came forward and told me what they make. And the thing is, when someone is willing to share that information, you can see, like, it's not just like going to Glassdoor and looking at the range of what someone would make. Yeah, it gives you the history of their path, right? Did they, like me, did they start out as a designer? Did they work their way up learning user interfaces? Did they take back-end classes? Did they, do these other things to get more familiar with ultimately, working in a Scrum environment or whatever the case is where they want to be. So I find that really helpful. I just say, the absolute horrible worst thing that can happen, I don't think would be worse than them disconnecting with you, right? And it's probably better that way, to disconnect with them if that's how they feel. But I really believe, like, positively believe that you have nothing to lose. You are at this point where you're looking for a job or you're trying to get these answers. So just reach out and try to get those answers.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone knows that these are hard times, and especially if you're, an honest person, and, they probably look at your profile, they see your experience, they see what you're posting, so they can get a picture of like who you are and what you're trying to do. And I think there is a lot of understanding there for anyone. I mean, anyone can be in a similar situation, and in the end, we're all human beings, and we're also trying to help each other. And yeah, why not bring someone in an organization that seems to be a very nice person if you already know that there's an opening, or if there's like an opportunity, or maybe there's a program, or there's something that hasn't been made public yet.
Yeah, I've definitely connected with some people where they're sharing with me that they're really looking for cultural fit. They're looking for, emotional intelligence, personality, that sort of thing, because they can teach the skills. The skills are teachable, right? I mean, when I started my internship, I didn't know Jira or Confluence, but I can tell you I had to learn them because I had to learn them. So I did, right?
Essentially, it's something that you learn. I mean, unless you want to become a Jira administrator or something like that, you can get a hang of it in 1 or 2 days. And then if you have a person, like if you're trying to do something more complex, there will be still a few tricks. And then being anyway very popular tools, if you just Google for something, that the answer is there. So it's not like you need a certification for getting started with this tool. So yeah, you can learn everything.
I once heard someone talk about Stack Overflow, and they were basically saying that they weren't a developer, but they were just a really good, like, Stack Overflow Googler.
Yeah.
And that was that. Yeah, right. But this person was flat out saying it. They were like, yeah, I can't develop at all, but I'm, Stack Overflow, whatever, search expert or something. They gave themselves some kind of obtuse, funny, title.
I think there are even books about this, like how to search or Stack Overflow for solutions.
A book I haven't read. Oh my God. I read books all the time too.
We'll add them in the video description as well.
Oh boy, you don't have enough space.
Oh, it's gonna be a long description.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I like your enthusiasm, and I wish you good luck with the job search. I know something will happen soon, and because I can feel it from you that you are really with your heart and soul into this, and that you really enjoy what you're doing, and that you're eager to learn more. And essentially, this is something that any organization should value a lot more than experience or existing skills or anything like that.
Yeah, always be learning. ABL.
A new acronym to learn.
Yeah, there's not enough acronyms out there. Let's make some more.
Let's make some more. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. And as I said, I will get from you all the links and everything we talked about, and we'll add them in the video description. I will also post updates there just in case something changes about you. Would it be okay if we also include your LinkedIn profile? Maybe some people have some questions and wanna send you a message. Would that be okay?
No, not okay.
Okay, good.
I'm joking. That was really on the spot, though. No, yeah, I totally feed off of mentorship. And if Mike heard this, though, I don't know if he's going to listen to this. He would yell at me and be like, "Focus on your own job search right now. Stop helping other people." He would seriously, he would yell at me, but in Slack. So, it's just words. Because we still, yeah, right. No, we still very much talk to each other. So,
okay. That's nice. All right. Again, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you again, maybe with an update with what you're doing.
Okay, sounds good. I totally want to see these outtakes.
Bye.
I'd be like,